Why won't you get a job? Okay. Well, so much for that. Why, hello there, endurance nerds. Welcome to the chronicles of an unproductive member of society as I find myself woefully unemployed between jobs for a whole 48 hours.
No! God, please, no! 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 No!
Whatever will I do with all of this time? Make videos for you? Provide a little snark that nobody asked for? The opportunities are, well, exceptionally limited.
Get some help.
But in any event, before I get into the Zwift Academy debrief, I'm going to go into a little bit of a life/channel update. Now, if you want to skip right to the main content, I will go ahead and leave timestamps down below for you to go ahead and do so. But for those of you who have been around for a while or just curious as to what's going to come from this channel in the future, go ahead and stick around and we'll talk a little bit. So I am starting a new job tomorrow. I'm very excited to do so. I've struggled over the past 18 months with really finding a good work-life balance with my existing job. There's been a lot of turbulence. Many of you have asked why the only videos I seem to be making over 2022 and 2023 are those related to Zwift Academy, and there are some reasons for that. And I will own some of those reasons, but suffice it to say that I have really struggled finding the motivation, the impetus, and just the time to be able to put together videos, which I do in fact enjoy, but if you really think about it, preparing for the videos, filming them, editing them, posting them, and dealing with any of the aftermath that comes from those videos, it's actually a pretty big commitment.
Oh, really?
It's not just sitting in front of a camera for 20 minutes and talking. There's a lot of work that goes into making the videos, even if there's something simple like this, like a talking head video. And while the long version of the story is probably one for a video unto itself, there's been a lot of turbulence in my workplace that has affected a number of people with whom I work. It's resulted in very high workloads, high levels of stress, and really the inability to carry energy out of my work that allows me to do some of those things that I enjoy. I struggle sometimes just to manage work and training, and not necessarily because I'm working 16, 18, 20 hours a day, but more because of the stress that I'm taking home with me has really been draining to me and has made it difficult for me to take on anything that's not really a baseline level of training and then trying to recover and to go into work the next day. I am no stranger to hard work. I'm a very industrious person by nature. I don't mind struggling. I don't mind adversity. I don't even mind a little suffering, right? As endurance athletes, we have to deal with that type of thing all the time. But when it gets to the point where it takes so much energy away from you just to navigate things like office politics, toxicity, plus a pretty demanding workload, you know that it's probably time to move along. And I made that decision maybe even a little bit late, but I really did think if I kept my head down that things would improve. And perhaps when I've put this transition a little bit further into my rear view, it's something I will share in terms of a longer video, not necessarily because it's germane to endurance sports specifically, but because this type of balancing of real life and training and other responsibilities is something that I believe that a lot of you watching this video may have dealt with or will deal with in the future, and perhaps you can learn some lessons from the mistakes that I made along the way. But suffice it to say, I believe I spent a little bit too long subscribed to the sunk cost fallacy at my last employer.
I've eaten 23 bad subs. I just need one more. It's like a long, bad movie, but you want to see the end of it.
Now you walk out.
And I'm looking forward to starting a new chapter with a new one. Now, while I expect to be pretty busy with this new employer, I also expect that that type of purpose and excitement and that beginner's mindset will actually provide more energy than it takes away. And I do believe I will have a much easier time trying to balance some of those extracurricular things like these videos going into the future. I do need to find some kind of balance and stability in terms of scheduling these things, so I'm not going to sit here and commit to a weekly video, but perhaps that's where I end up going in the long term, or something with at least more regularity. Now, this new job is going to have at least a significant amount of travel.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
And that's something I'm going to have to navigate. And I've been thinking that perhaps that's an opportunity, if it's something that you guys would be interested in, to create some vlog style content as I'm trying to navigate and balance training amid a travel and work schedule. I anticipate that my 2024 training will take on a more heavy multi-sport or hybrid athlete flavor, which I don't mind. I like doing multi-sport events. I do like doing strength work. I may have to rebalance those disciplines as opposed to maybe that more cycling-centric focus that I've had. It also remains to be seen if I look to get back into competition, something that I've sidelined because of that work-life balance situation. So those are things that I might want to share with you guys in these videos and see how I can balance those things amid a new work routine and schedule. In any event, I'm excited for what is to come in the future, and I'm really hoping to be able to share that with you guys. And if you have any thoughts of things that I might be able to share with you that you may find of interest, let me know in the comments down below. But with that life update out of the way, let's talk about the Zwift Academy. I'm going to talk about some things that I like, some things that I think could be improved upon, and maybe a couple of things things that I'm not a huge fan of. And then maybe we'll talk a little bit about what the future of the Academy looks like, because I have some questions after this year's Academy of where things go. So what do I think they should continue doing? And first and foremost is the execution. This year, their simplification of the program and getting back to the basics has required an all but seamless execution of the Academy, at least from what I have observed. All of those hiccups from weird group ride events or races, workout snafus, emails that weren't going out, it looks like, at least to me, that everything worked well. And I think that that is in large part due to the simplification of the program. If you're trying to juggle too many features, especially like last year when they were trying to launch all these new feature sets and launch a completely different Academy in terms of the deliverables, it kind of blew up in their face. This year, short of some maybe outlier instances or some minor complaints, I did not see any major issues in terms of their execution. Whether they expand on the program or not, making sure that they do the basics brilliantly and do the execution well so people's experiences are equitable and easy, they should continue doing that. The next thing is the time frame. While I've talked a little bit about having a more robust, longer form version of this program, in terms of the core elements of the Academy, I think 6 weeks is a good middle ground. It allows people to do the number of deliverables that they have. So in this case, there were 6 workouts and 2 races. I think 6 weeks is a good period of time that people can count on probably doing 2 of these per week, but it also allows a little bit of flexibility if perhaps you have to start a little bit late, take a week off in between, deal with some holidays, family things. It's the appropriate amount of time, and it doesn't feel like the Academy is getting stale. Once you protract out to 8 weeks without adding more deliverables to do, it seems a little bit like the program and the schedule is starting to get a little bit tired and a little bit stale. So I think 6 weeks is a good middle ground. The next thing that I believe that they should continue is the style of workouts. Now, I do have something that I'd like them to start doing that I'll talk about here in a few moments, but in terms of this assessment style workout, I think given the short breadth of the program that you're only doing 6 weeks, while you could program a training block, if you're only going to have 6 to 8 deliverables in that 6-week period of time, I don't think that you're going to get much accomplished in terms of all of these different types of workouts. A training block is not going to have VO2 max intermixed with steady state, intermixed with anaerobic and threshold. Your traditional training blocks are either going to be very base focused or they're going to be build focused around your particular deliverables. You very rarely see a program that has that kitchen sink approach unless you're just looking to be a generally fit and well-rounded athlete. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that designing this program so that you have a number of different assessments, and if you have it well timed during the course of the year, that means that people are going into their base season or going into their in-season, depending on where you are across the globe, and you're going to get an evaluation of where you stand in all these different critical power elements. Where's your 30-second power? Where's your 5-minute power? Where's your 20-minute power? And so on and so forth. So you'll be able to get some actionable insights or comparison insights as you're moving into different areas of your season that you can really use, and then you can come back to those workouts, whether you do the entire set or you just grab bits and pieces of them along the way and what fits your training modality. I think that that's of value. Now, I do know that that's going to be a very kind of polarizing opinion. Not everybody's going to agree with that, but I'm thinking more in terms of having 6 workouts in 6 weeks plus a couple of races. That's not really befitting of a traditional training plan. Another thing that I think that they really improved on this year is the quality of the on-screen prompts during those workouts. They took a little bit of the hokiness out of it that we've seen in years past. There's still a little bit of lighthearted joking around, which is fine. It helps to pass the time. But I think in the past they did too much of that and not as much in terms of actionable insights. It looks like they made a better effort this year to try to educate as much as you can, right? People aren't going to read a novel or some kind of dissertation when they're doing a workout, but there was enough meat on the bone so people understood what was coming down the pike in terms of the workout and what they can take away from it and what they can look for. So I think from the beginner all the way to the advanced, those workout prompts were really well done this year. Now let's talk about the things that I really didn't like this year. And it's not a very long list, but the very prominent thing that I really am not happy with this year is not specific to the Academy Road, but their treatment of the academies in general, and specifically their disbanding of the triathlon and run academies. I don't know that this is a permanent move for them, but I think it was a bad move. I think that those 2 academies in particular had a more broad reach for the amateur athlete. The Academy Road, let's face it, it's really intended for the elite in terms of the pro contenders or winning of that type of competition, right? The 1% of the 1% is going to make the top. You only have 1 winner, 1 man, 1 woman and that's it. And let's face it, that winner is going to come from a very narrow demographic and age range that's not going to be accessible to the vast majority of riders on Zwift. By contrast, the triathlon and run programs were more amateur first. You didn't have to be the best of the best with honors to be chosen to win that academy. You were going to be given the opportunity that you may not have in the real world, even as an amateur, if you were willing to put in the work, do the deliverables, and you could be set up with the opportunity to succeed in terms of an Ironman triathlon or in terms of a marathon. I thought that was great. Chances were much higher for the everyman or woman to be able to win that type of academy. And I think doing away with those two academies was a step in the wrong direction. Now, I understand from a logistics perspective and understand that there's limitations in terms of the core product for running in particular, and obviously for swimming for triathlon. I understand it in theory, but in practice, I think that they've stepped away from something that was a net positive for the community. In that regard, I'd like to see the cycling component expanded. Have that pro contender competition, have that type of visibility, have that type of sponsorship or engagement from those pro or world tour teams. But is there not an option to be able to expand that competition to include your amateurs as well? Have another set of semifinals where you might have some other prizes on the line. Hell, you can even go for minor prizes like winning a free year on Zwift or some sort of swag. People get excited about competing for those types of things. But when 99.9% of your user base on Zwift doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell in terms of winning the academy, I think the engagement is just different than it was for the Academy Tri and the Academy Run. So bottom line there, bring the other academies back next year, even if they take on a little bit of a different format. I think it was a net positive for the community. The next thing I really don't like is something that I gripe about all the time, and that's actually the unlocks. I think that the unlocks are not particularly compelling. I think that they're a little bit lazy. They're just kind of rolling a new coat of paint on something old, and it's not the most compelling for people to participate in the academy and continue to challenge themselves. These are not items that people will carry forward. When you're talking about a paint scheme for a 3-year-old bike, how is that going to drive people to really want to finish this type of academy? And now, yes, I understand that when you go on to Zwift and you're going on your indoor trainer, you really should be focused on fitness first. But let's face it, for many of us, indoor training can be a little bit tough. It can be a little bit boring. And the reason that we use Zwift in addition to or instead of things like Trainer Road or Rouvy is because of the gamification. It's a game, right? You are trying to create those little micro rewards within the program to make your training more immersive and more compelling. And when they kind of phone it in with some of these unlocks, it just doesn't give you that same type of impetus. That's why so many people love levels and unlocks and badge hunting, because it just gives you something to strive for. And when the academy, which is, let's face it, a challenging program, which may or may not fit into a paradigm for training, and you may be in that kind of a lull period where you don't know if you're ready to take on structured training or not, it's the impetus to work hard that comes from, hey, I'm getting a pretty cool unlock. There have been a number of shorter initiatives, campaigns, missions that have been available on Zwift that have really cool and unique unlocks that people want to wear all the time. They're not as popular or widespread as the academy. Why on earth are they going to continue to just recycle the same kit, helmet, socks? It's just boring. I'd like to see them come to the table with something a little bit more robust and a little bit more compelling for their academy participants. Now let's go through the list of things that I think that Zwift can really improve upon or enhance in Academy's future. And this is going to be the longest list that I have. And the first is specific to the workouts. And I talked about this a little bit in some of the other videos. I think that they did a really good thing creating a long version of the workout that's somewhere in that 75 to 90 minute range. And that's going to really capture those higher intermediate to advanced level riders. I also think that there's value in the short workout that's somewhere in that 45-minute range. So for those people who are time crunched or are beginners, have something accessible to them. But what you're missing is that meaty part of the bell curve, somewhere in that 60-minute mark. They really need a medium length workout for the vast majority of their riders that are around 60 minutes. So that way you've got something challenging for your pro contenders or advanced athletes, you have something available for time crunched and beginners, and you have something for most people on Zwift. That 60-minute threshold for workouts is pretty typical for most people, even when we're talking in terms of an assessment. If you want to get a proper warm-up, proper primers, but you're not necessarily built up to do those longer variants, you've got the 60-minute medium variant available to you. I really don't think that that's going to create a whole ton of noise or extra development for Zwift. Just have 3 variations instead of 2. You can run all of the completion deliverables the same way. You've got workout number 1, short, mid, and long. I think that they really can benefit from adding that next year. And if I had to guess, if they're going to do a survey on feedback, I think that's going to be number 1 request. I don't think that they should get rid of the long variant variant of the workout and go back to just 45 and 60. I think that they need to have 3, but that's just my opinion. But let me know what you think. The next thing is that they sent out the email, at least to me, I got that at around the midpoint of the academy. I haven't gotten anything here at the end yet. That may come in the next week or so if they plan to do that. But I did get a comparison of my 30-second, my 5-minute, and my 20-minute power from what I've done within the workouts and then what I've done over a longer period of time, and to get those comparisons. Now, my data is a little bit skewed because obviously I was fighting through that illness and my 5-minute power is actually beneath my general threshold, but I knew that that was the case because I wasn't feeling well. But I thought that that was kind of well executed. What I would like to see maybe in the future is to put that in a little bit more of a timely format. Can they make that so it sends right after the workout? So if you're doing the assessment that tests your 30-second power, they can send out just your 30-second, compare it over the last period of time, maybe show you some graphs. Or if the email modality isn't the right one, can you show it at the end screen when you show the overall workout graph? Can it give you some of those insights at the bottom of that screen? Or can they include that in the companion app somewhere? I know they've tried some execution with this in the past that wasn't particularly well done, but I think that there's an opportunity to help to shepherd your riders through analyzing those different assessments and making a lot more clear what you're looking for. Because I think that even to this day, some people are really confused by these workouts and are not really gleaning the fact that they are assessments versus repeatable workouts. The next thing I'd really like to see is some kind of middle ground in terms of the race component. The racing is something that's going to appeal to some people, but not to all. And as I mentioned in earlier videos, you can absolutely just jump into a race and ride your own ride. But I think that there's some option to provide a group ride that could be challenging, but not necessarily super punchy and race-like for individuals who want a challenging ride, don't want necessarily a social noodle, but also don't want to race. And I'm thinking maybe a good execution for that is to have the races for those people who want to race, or those people going for the pro contender contract, and then maybe offer a pacer bot ride. So have categories A, B, C, and D, and then have your pacer bot ride at the upper limit or close to the upper limit of each of those different categories. That way you're looking for something that might be a little bit more of a stable ride, but you can either challenge yourself within your own category, the higher category, or if you're just looking for something that's a little bit easier, if you maybe are a Cat B rider and you're just looking for an easy, more endurance pace for an hour, then you can jump in the category D ride. Because there's dynamic pacing in the pacer bots these days, I think that will still be acceptable if you're looking for some variable terrain, but it might be a good middle ground between, hey, I don't want to race, but I also don't want just some unorganized noodle ride. And if you fall off the back, as long as you finish the course, you will still get credit. But I think that that might be an interesting execution, and it's easy to control. I do respect the desire of Zwift to not clutter the schedule with a number of different academy events and not have that crowding out all of the other community events. But I think that there's a way to balance that such that you can meet the demands or the needs of your different types of riders that want to complete the academy. I think in general that there's probably some under the hood improvements or quality of life improvements that can be made to either the HUD or in terms of APIs that can really round out the academy experience. I'm not going to go through all of those in detail here, as a lot of those are just more nuanced and more nitpicky than anything. But as Zwift continues to be a lot more agile in their development and their rate of features and improvements has continued to increase over the past, I would say, 2 years, I think that we can see some of those general things improve, and I can't wait to see what Zwift comes up with. But in terms of maybe a heavier lift that I'd like to see from Zwift, but I understand would have a lower degree of likelihood, is maybe that Academy Plus that I've talked about in the past, having something that's a little bit more long-term, something that has a higher degree of commitment, maybe taking on the form of a training plan, and you have to hit a certain percentage of adherence in the training plan to get credit. And at the end of what would probably be something like a 3-month training block, you would get a much larger reward. Maybe it's a big swath of experience points. Maybe it's a bike that you can only unlock through the Academy. There are a number of ways to spin that, but people may be looking for some sort of development plan, and to make it more complicated, you could have it for different periods of the year, right? You could have, for those people who are in their base season, have an Academy base, have an Academy build, have an Academy race. So you can have different flavors of the Academy that you can go back to that will live in your training plans, but if you do it during the period of time that the Academy is open, you may be able to have the opportunity for some additional unlocks or prizes. I have to wonder if something's coming down the pipeline in terms of APIs and integration with Training Peaks, especially given the recent update of stress score to TSS. It doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of value in doing that unless something is forthcoming or there's an additional enhancement in their partnership, because at the end of the day, I don't think it was really creating that much confusion. People understood that stress score was the same thing. It was calculated the same way. Why would you change that to a trademarked nomenclature? Perhaps I'm reading too much into it, but I'm thinking if there is some kind of enhanced partnership, there may be additional opportunities for that type of enhancement down the line. But that brings me to the ultimate and maybe more philosophical philosophical question. What's the future of the Academy going to look like? Forgetting about all of these little tweaks and suggestions that I've made or expansions of the program, what about the existence of the Academy as a whole? Where do we go from here? I think as Zwift has navigated through variations of this program to kind of create more feature sets, create more interest and drive in terms of the program, they've also suffered with not only execution barriers, but also creating that inconsistent experience for even those pro contenders. Every set of pro contenders from the beginning of the Academy to today has had to undergo a vastly different protocol to get to the end of the Academy. I would argue that last year was the most difficult in terms of the condensed timeline, all of the snafus they had in the first week that people had to redo rides, the additional components in those assessments that the contenders had to do on top of the high number of deliverables in the shorter time frame. They had the toughest go in terms of fitting everything in and getting it all done, but it's not consistent with what people had to do this year. So how much different do they make the program from year to year, while they really should be trying to maintain some semblance of consistency for pro contenders or for the contest in general? But then they have to balance that with the typical psychology of somebody who's paying for a platform. Now, for me, if they polished up almost this identical program with a couple of tweaks and variations going into next year, maybe changing up the workouts a little bit, but ultimately the program is the same, for someone who has a great deal of experience in terms of structured training and understanding that, hey, listen, from a week to week, month to month, year to year standpoint, other than right sizing the different durations, power executions, and so on and so forth, as your ability changes over the course of your micro, meso, and macro cycles, you're not looking for a whole lot of variation in your training. Consistency is key when it comes to structured training. So if they gave me the same program next year, more or less, with maybe a little additional polish and shine on it, that would not bother me in particular. But I can see a large contingent of Zwift thinking that, hey, this is super lazy. You're just giving me the same program you had last year. I already did this. Why do I need to do this again? Give me something new, something exciting, something shiny. How Zwift is going to navigate that type of psychology, I'm not really sure. I'd like to hear from you guys in the comments where you land, which camp you are in. I don't think that there's a right or wrong, right? Because people are paying for a platform, they're looking for engagement, they're looking for some sort of novelty, so I can understand that perspective and saying, hey, you're gonna give me an academy, give me something new each year so I have something that I'm excited and looking forward to. And I can also see the camp that maybe I find myself in where, hey, just keep it simple, stupid, do the same thing, give me some additional unlocks, tweak things for the better, give me a little bit more engagement, give me a little bit more data, but if the structure of the workouts and the general structure of the plan is ultimately the same, I'm not gonna cry real tears in my oatmeal about it. It's interesting to consider those options when you're looking at a potential existential threat to the program. Do they stay the course? They've proven the stability, make some small tweaks that can please a good 50% of the folks out there who are just looking for something consistent, look forward to doing the same thing. It's a good reset during that point in the year that they can go through the program and know what to expect and have a good experience. And maybe the other half of folks who are looking for Zwift to continue to innovate, to bring something new, to add more gamification. How do you strike the balance between those two sets of people? I think Zwift has a tough decision to make as to what they do and whether this program continues to exist in the future. I do firmly believe picking one of those directions, they can offset some of that disappointment if they bring things down to a more amateur level, like I mentioned before. Don't just make this program about pro contenders. Make it about something that people can work towards or win as an amateur, and they don't have to be elite to do so. But let me know what you guys think. If you had Zwift's ear, if they send out the survey, what type of suggestions are you going to make? Do you like the way things are and want to see that continue in perpetuity? Are you just kind of sick and tired of the Academy and you're not really interested anymore? Do you want to see more novelty? Again, I don't think that there's a right answer, and I don't really have a strong intuition anymore as to how those demographics would truly shake out as more and more people get interested in the sport for completely different reasons. But the bottom line for me, I think they did a great job with the Academy in 2023. I'd love to see them heed some of these suggestions that I do not believe I'm the only person making here. I am very much looking forward to what Zwift has to deliver in 2024, not specific to the Academy, but in general, as I've very much appreciated their acceleration in terms of their agility and feature sets, all of those campaigns that they continue to add, making the program more compelling for both new people and existing users alike. I thought for a while that they were a little bit too focused on bringing people in from the street and not so focused on engaging their existing community. I do believe that they're finding a much better balance, listening to that community, continuing to expand on the program so it remains compelling and has us continue to go back to our indoor trainers again and again. So I'm excited to see what's in store for Zwift. Let me know in the comments what you're looking forward to seeing, whether it's the Academy or otherwise. It's a very exciting time for the community and for Zwift, so I'd love to hear from you guys. Do me a favor, hit the like button. Algorithm stuff, YouTube-y stuff puts this video in front of more people. Just do me that favor. It only takes a second. It's free. You don't have to pay to hit the buttons, all that stuff. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, I'll catch you in the next one.